Hey, Nish here, and today I'm reviewing this microphone, the Samson Q2U, which, spoiler alert, I am very happy with. Now, as the title suggests, I'm going to be making some comparisons to this and your typical USB condenser microphones, which I've used in the past, so stay tuned for that. Samsung are, at this point, a fairly reputable audio company. They specialize in making really high quality things for really low budgets, and that's things from headphones, microphones, etc. I've had a few products from them, and generally, I'm quite impressed. This microphone, the Q2U, is a dynamic microphone, which is both USB and XLR, and it comes in at about 50 to 60 pounds, depending on where you are. Currencies will vary. Taking a look at the product, it is a dynamic, classic microphone style shape. You can see there's both the USB and XLR ports on the bottom, so you can use this either with a traditional audio interface, or you can use it as a plug and play microphone with a computer using USB. Very versatile. You've also got on the bottom there a headphone monitoring jack. The only other I/O on the microphone is an on-off switch, so you haven't got any controls for the gain or the volume of that headphone monitoring on the microphone itself. Included with the microphone, you get a small fixed tripod type stand. You also get a foam wind cover, which I've got on the microphone itself, as well as an XLR cable and USB cable. It is USB mini, which is, I don't know why they don't just use C for everything already, but you know, it's not as annoying as micro USB. I think at least mini USB is a bit more reliable. Now let's talk about dynamic and condenser microphones. Now, what a dynamic microphone, without diving too much into the details, the difference with them is that they're passive, so they have the coil inside that's picking up sound waves, and they need quite a lot of oomph, quite a lot of sound in order to get vibrating. And what this means is they're less sensitive to noise, because the typical noises that will be around aren't quite strong enough to get the microphone buzzing. Now, in contrast to this, condenser microphones are kind of active and powered, so they're much more sensitive to all the kind of sounds you have around. And most USB microphones do tend to be condenser microphones, and you know, the usual advice of the best beginner condenser microphones being things like the Blue Yeti, I was following and touting that advice for a long time, and then I realized from watching a couple videos that actually, perhaps in some situations, and particularly my situation, a dynamic microphone is a much better choice. Now, why is this the case? Well, as I said, condenser microphones are really sensitive to noise, and for example, if you're in an environment where there's noise from the room next door or someone's turned on the washing machine, you can easily pick up noises that are unwanted. If you're moving around a lot like I am, you're not in a sound-treated environment, you're not putting up foam panels and stuff, and that means things like echoes and etc. are again gonna change the sound and potentially make it a little bit worse. Now, before I dive into my full pros and cons, please do subscribe if you like what you're seeing so far. Helps the channel grow, helps the video get out there, and I'd really appreciate it. The first major pro I have to say is the sound quality, in my opinion, for the price. So this is a very budget level item, right? 50 to 60 pounds. But I think the quality of recordings I'm getting out of this are just as good as what I was getting out of the Blue Yeti. I mean, it sounds different. It's a microphone with a slightly different profile. So, after you do all the equalizing and other processing, it will sound different, but I think it still sounds pretty good, and you get a very usable signal and recording out of it. The other thing I really like about this microphone is the versatility. So as I've mentioned maybe too many times, it's USB and XLR, and I don't think this is a feature that is very common. Like, if we look at the Blue Yeti product range, I'm making a lot of comparisons to that, then only their Pro, which costs $200 or 200 pounds or whatever, only their Pro has this dual capability of both being a plug and play and also being able to use with an audio interface. Now, I really value this because I'm using this microphone both for just talking things and also using it for vocals and singing. And, I might want to use it with, I recently got a loop pedal that I can plug in an XLR mic in. So I can use this microphone both for recordings with my computer, with the USB, but also with some audio gear I have. On to the cons, and the first thing is that the provided stand is a little bit unnoteworthy. Now, I don't want to give them too hard a time about this because I think ultimately, at this budget, you would prefer all of the budget to be going into the microphone and maximizing the sound quality there. And the stand is usable, it's just not very adjustable, and typically you'll probably need something else to get it in a nice position, like I've got a cheap boom arm here. The other thing, which is maybe a bit more serious, and it might just be something that's quite common with dynamic microphones, is that the output is rather quiet on this microphone. So I'm finding when I'm using it by USB, I've cranked up the gain to 100, and at this kind of distance that I am, it's still not, it's not really getting to quite high levels, which is good in a way. What I am going to try is with the XLR, because I'm using it with a loop pedal, I'm going to try and buy one of these microphone preamp things that you can put between the cable that should boost the signal, and I'll see how that goes. The only other real con is that there isn't really much controls on the microphone, but I think the style of microphone, one that you might want to hold, You don't really want to put a load of buttons on there because it will just get annoying. So again, it's a con, but it's not really a con. So I've already made a comparison to condenser style microphones, but I thought I'd reiterate in this section my main points. Essentially, if you have an uncontrolled, untreated, quite amateur environment for sound recording, you might well have an easier time with a dynamic microphone like this compared to what is typically recommended condenser USB microphones. That being said, there are some things you need to consider because as I talked about the technology differences between condenser microphones and dynamic microphones, there are some things that condenser microphones can do which this will not be able to do. The first main thing is the frequency range and the fidelity of the recordings. If you're looking for really minuscule details, I guess particularly in music, you typically want to pick up these really rich details. But if you're looking for that kind of thing, then maybe a condenser microphone is a better option. And you have to take into account that you've got the caveat. It's like a double-edged sword, right? You've got more sensitivity to pick up detail, but that's more sensitivity to pick up unwanted noise. The other major consideration is that dynamic microphones only really have one recording mode, right? It's just focusing on what's coming into it, basically a cardioid style pickup pattern. Condenser microphones, on the other hand, a lot of them can have different recording modes. And for example, an omnidirectional recording mode, which is very good at picking up the sound in a room, a dynamic microphone typically cannot do that. Well, no, it just can't do that. If you want that kind of functionality, you do need to look to a condenser microphone. Some more expensive condenser microphones also have interview type features or can record in stereo. So again, obviously you have to consider what your use case is. But I think ultimately, if you're just looking to do simple stuff like just talking into the microphone or singing into the microphone, I think you're going to have an easier time with a dynamic mic like this. So that is my take on the Samson Q2U. I hope this has been a useful video. Particularly let me know what you think of this debate between dynamic and condenser microphones and maybe what your experience has been if you've experimented in trying different microphones out. Thanks again for watching. Hope it's useful and subscribe for more content. And I keep on saying and I'll catch you in the next one.